Well, hello, weirdos. Today I want to talk about an article from the Huffington Post. I'm not the first person to report on this article. 4 Box's Diner also did a very good video on that. Looks like this right here. Strongly recommend checking it out. It's pretty good. Anyways, essentially what it all boils down to is the Huffington Post did an article. Remember, these guys are anti-gun. Talking about how bad they're losing in the gun control sector. Now they give a bunch of... They pretty much make shit up and put it on paper, like with no facts backing it at all, on pro-gun control and why they're losing. So I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of reality across this, just so, you know, maybe, just maybe, somebody at Huffington Post will see this video and be like, you know, we never really considered that shit. We've been so blinded on what we've been told that, well, we just kind of went with it. And yeah, these doctors and professors and everything gave their opinions, but it's not backed by fact at all. Like the little bit of facts, there's like maybe 2 facts in there, which we'll discuss. And essentially, why have we just been killing it on the front of gun control? Well, there's a couple of different reasons. Now, they date it back to 2010. It actually goes back a little bit farther. Yes, 2010 was a pretty good turning point, but it actually goes back all the way back to 2004 to the AWB, which was the Clintons' legacy. And what that basically was an assault weapons ban. It was a 10-year ban, and if it had showed that it would work or whatever, because, like, this was put in place in 1994. It wasn't today. If it would have been today, they would have just been like, permanent life ban. But back then, you had to dabble around these things, because otherwise you would upset people, and you'd get voted out of office. Well, anyway, in 1994, they had put in the AWB, and it was a 10-year ban, and if it showed that it was working, it was supposed to be renewed. Obviously, it didn't, because we all know what happened from 1994 to 2004, and, well, I don't think I need to stress this, but, well, you know, there was a lot of incidents happening at schools that this ban did absolutely nothing to stop. Because it was ridiculous. You can't ban something and expect criminals not to use it because criminals don't follow laws. And I'm not saying that the ban didn't, like, restrict what weapons were actually used in these school incidences or anything like that. All I'm saying is that's not the point. The point was to stop violence. And it didn't. Well, anyways, that was a major turning point, 2002. I think that was, in my opinion, the first crest of people are starting to see the truth. And that has a lot to do with home access to the internet. Before, if you wanted to look something up, first you had to know what you were looking up, which that's hard. The internet allowed us to be able to ask a question when we didn't know what the question was. So before you had to know specifically what the question was, you had to walk on down to your local library, go through the card catalog, like this was actually a thing, like you had to flip and look through books. And you already had to know the answer was in a specific book. You had to find the name of that book, you had to pull that book out, which could be hundreds of pages long, and look exactly what you're looking for. Essentially, you had to already know the question, you had to know the answer, you had to know where to find it, and you're basically just using the book as a reference. So it really limited people's ability to learn outside of the box. There was a box that everyone was put in, they were fed specific information, and that was it. Well, when home access to the internet happened, well, now that's not the case anymore. I mean, look right now, you could go into Google and, like, kind of dabble, like, oh, what was that song? It's got a verse, the clock on the wall goes, and you start typing that in, and all of a sudden it pops up, and then it tells you the song and everything. It's so much easier to find information, not to mention, things like YouTube allowed us to express information with each other, so we all learn as a group. So in my opinion, the major, like the high water mark where things started breaking and started falling back the other way was 2004. That is also when the AWB was lifted. Anyways, they're quoting 2010, saying in 2010 only 2 states had constitutional carry. Now it's over 50% of the states. In my opinion, that's pretty irrelevant. I mean, there's a lot more that happened. For example, look who was president in 2010. His campaign speech, the speech that got him in office, was how did it go? It was change needs to come from the people to Washington, not from Washington to the people. And that got him elected because that's what everybody was thinking at that time. I mean, the Trade Center happened, like, there was just so much controversy and turmoil through the American public. That's what they wanted. Now, no, he didn't do that at all. He basically got in office and started throwing change from Washington down at the people, which snowballed and made things even worse. So, 2013, we're looking at a .556 ammunition ban. Gunsmithing basically becomes illegal. You can still build homemade firearms, but to do it, he made a whole bunch of hoops that you had to jump through. Like, realistically, when you look at the law around a homemade, manufactured firearm and what they want you to do to be legal, it's bad. You have to own something, like an actual place. So, like, you can't be paying a mortgage or anything like that. You actually have to own it. So it would have to be like the bed of a pickup you have paid for in cash. You can't buy tools specifically to manufacture the firearm, so it has to be tools you have already owned for other purposes. Remember, this is how the laws, or the ATF's rule, is written, but that came from that particular president. So you can't buy tools to manufacture it. You have to already own the tools. You have to do it in like the bed of your truck because you have to actually own the area you're doing it in, not rent, not paying a mortgage on. You have to own it. You can't have help. You can't have any instructions, so you have to already like somehow magically know how to do this. Legally speaking, he made it 100% illegal to manufacture your homemade firearm, which is insane. I mean, this is a tradition that's been in the country forever. We've always made our own firearms. And just all that stuff happened, and what they basically did is they took crazy Uncle Joe, who drinks a little bit too much at Thanksgiving and starts talking about the government trying to take over. They made everything he was saying true and a fact, because it happened. You can see it happen. Before it was all like, oh, he's crazy, they're not coming after us, they're not tyrannical, they're not communists, like, where's your proof? And he's like, I'm telling you, well, now he doesn't have to tell you. Pull up his little smartphone and be like, yeah, it happened here. He basically, not justified, it's the word I'm looking, vindicated everything he was saying, which was bad, because now you're like, well, you know, he's maybe not crazy, maybe I should listen to what he's saying, and that started happening all over the country, and it changed people's opinion drastically on what they think would happen. Before, like, a law or a regulation would come out and would only affect a small group of people, and those were the only people that would care about it, because you'd be like, oh, well, that doesn't affect me. Why do I care? Why do I care what happens with AK-47 ammunition? I don't shoot an AK-47, and that's basically how it happened, just little bit by little bit, and nobody cared about the things that didn't affect them. Case in point, the bump stock. Like, it affected such a small group, and everyone's like, no, that can't happen because the implications behind it, and it's going to cause a snowball. Well, it did. And nobody cared about it because it didn't affect them, but that's changed. That's gone now. Like, anytime anything happens, whether or not it affects us, if it has to do with guns, everyone cares. Which is, bringing on why we're getting so much traction forward, because now everybody cares about every single gun issue. It isn't just a small niche group that cares about that small niche gun issue. Now everybody laser focuses on it, and we've just been tearing it up. So anyway, they did a whole bunch of propaganda explaining, and then they go on to say that, you know, since all this has been happening, especially in 2019 and 2021, gun deaths have went up by 20%. First off, they say gun deaths, so you know they're not talking about murders, they're talking about deaths in general, which includes suicides, and a bunch of people were suicidal around that time. But why? I mean, why in 2019 and 2021 did we see a rise in gun deaths? Well, they got their liberal fantasy. I shouldn't say liberal, because that's not accurate. Communist fantasy, that's a more accurate description of what happened. So there was an incident, and we've all read through the books that are backed up by science. Yeah, it's a science fiction book, but they actually go to like virus labs and stuff like that to find out exactly like how things would spread. Yeah, we tried to prevent something 3 months after, you know, ground zero happened. That's not how reality works. Unless you know in like 24 hours and you can like isolate the area with people with machine guns and hazmat suits and just shut everything down. And what we were trying to do was ridiculous and everyone could see it. However, they used it as an excuse. Also during that time, they did the whole defund police thing. Which in theory, like, it's romantic and that, and like, I get why a lot of people were on board for it, but I mean, in practice, that's just not how things work. Now, I have a different perspective on police because I live in a small town. We elect our sheriff. We know all the police. If we have a problem, well, he's not getting voted in again. Like, we have a lot of control on what the police can and can't do. You know, obviously, if you have like a meth lab or something like that, you really can't do much about that. You're going to get raided. But I'm saying, like, if they start being crazy or like tyrannical, I guess is the best word to use it, we can do something about it. Now, I understand in the bigger cities you can't, because people get appointed and there's just nothing to do about it. Well, in the smaller towns like this, you elect them. So there's a lot you can do about it. Well, anyway, so let me talk about defund the police for a second. Yeah, it's great in theory, and I'm not going to say that reform needs to happen or does not need to happen. I'm not there. I don't get to witness it. I don't get to see how bad it is or is not. But defund the police, that's just ridiculous. Because you know what would happen? We would have a police system like Mexico. Why, you may ask? Well, yeah, that's all great for you. You know, you're a healthy 20-year-old. Yeah, defund the police. I can take care of myself. That makes sense to you. But you know who it doesn't make sense to? Like a 60 or 80-year-old guy. And you know what a 60 or 80-year-old guy has? Money. And a lot of money. So he's going to make his own police force. A bunch of other 60-year-old or 80-year-old guys are going to jump onto that. They're going to form a co-op. We could call it the Cool Kids Clan. And they're going to form that co-op. They're going to own their own police force. And they're going to get to dictate what does and does not happen. Because they're paying for the police. So they get to tell the police what they are or are not going to do. And that's what will happen. You'll have a bunch of little police forces and little areas. And the people that have that Cool Kids co-op, they're going to run it. So what you think is happening now is bad? Yeah, wait till the police are privately owned. Because there will always be police. Maybe not government-funded police, but there will always be police. It'll just switch over to privately funded. And we will have a police force just like Mexico. That's what you're going to get with defund the police. That's the only alternative that it will boil down to. So again, not saying that there should or should not be police reform. I'm just saying defund the police is a stupid idea. What you're basically going to do is let rich people own towns. The police force and all. Anyway, besides that, they got control. Like control over travel, control over speech, control over dress, control over censorship. And 2019 to 2021, they got their utopia they always wanted. And it exploded in everyone's face. The riots, like just economy went to shit. Like everything that we said would happen, we got vindicated. Because it did happen. At 2.5 weeks, what's going to happen is they're going to start cashing in favors. Pulling the change out of the couch, etc., etc. You're going to see crime rate go up. This is your normal crime rate. It's going to peak off a little bit. They'll probably get about 1 week of making that happen. You can't have control. That's not how America works. That might work fine in other countries, but in America, no. We have our way of life, and it functions around the Constitution. When you take that away, our way of life no longer functions. We would have to literally burn down the country and restructure it for it to function without the Constitution. Because that's so incredibly important. But yeah, they got everything they wanted. And what happened? Gun violence went up. Deaths went up. Suicides went up. Everything fell apart. Like, it was bad. It was pretty bad. So, what is the real reason, I mean, the real legitimate reason when you boil away all the fat, all the propaganda, why is gun control failing so bad? Stopping racism. You can fact check this all you want, but it does. It all boils down to racism. Gun control is to do a couple of different things. No Indians can have guns, no black people can have guns, and the poors can't have guns. Gun control has always been rooted in racism and will always be rooted in racism. Because when you're rich and you're powerful, gun control means nothing to you. Because all gun control does is wrap things in red tape and makes it expensive. You take it away from the people that can't afford it. Always been wrapped in racism. And people can see that. It's not a secret fact. Like, we've all known that. And because so many people disagree with racism, well, gun control will fail. Because it's like the last racist law we have left. Everything else has been taken away, but no. Gun control is still there, and it's incredibly racist. And it's just a smack in the face to every black person, every Indian, or every poor person. Any kind of gun control whatsoever. Anyway, kind of went off in a whole bunch of different directions in this video. I hope it was still at least entertaining, if not enjoyable and or educational. If you'd like to help support the channel, I got my Shopify store. Shop at onlytacticalfans.com. Now, there's currently not inventory there because you guys are savages and you literally bought it out the day I launched it. But there will be soon. I promise. And you can subscribe right here and it will let you know when inventory shows up. Or you can donate directly on PayPal. Or you can sign up to be a Patreon. I am demonetized now, and I will likely never be monetized again. We'll have to see. Anyway, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.